Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Pluralist, the podcast where we try to make sense of complex issues of religion and state in Israel. And today, conversion. As we all know, Judaism is not a religion that actively seeks to convert people or persuade them to become Jewish. The process of conversion, of joining the Jewish faith, has evolved significantly over time. One of the most well-known examples of conversion in ancient times is that of Ruth, the great-grandmother of King David. She famously told her mother-in-law Naomi, "Your people shall be my people, and your God my God," expressing her deep commitment to both her mother-in-law Naomi and the Jewish faith. Ruth holds a special place in my heart because I read the Book of Ruth when I celebrated my belated bat mitzvah at the age of 50 on Shavuot 6 years ago. Fast forward to today, the Chief Rabbinate in Israel oversees conversions and takes a stringent approach that often alienates people rather than welcomes them. Those who convert through the state system are required to adopt an Orthodox lifestyle, commit to observing all the mitzvot, and enroll their children in religious schools. Public secular schools are not considered acceptable. There have even been cases where conversions were annulled after the rabbinate discovered that individuals were not fully observant post-conversion. This rigid approach clearly does not accommodate those with more liberal or secular views. Since the massive waves of Aliyah in the 1990s, Israel has faced a significant challenge as hundreds of thousands of immigrants from the former Soviet Union are not considered halachically Jewish. Some, though not all, of the immigrants wish to convert. Unfortunately, the state conversion system has failed to adequately address this issue. This is where the reform movement steps in. We offer conversion classes in our congregations and operate a Beit Din that successfully converts hundreds of individuals each year in an inclusive and respectful manner without attempting to impose an Orthodox lifestyle on the converts. It is important to note that conversion in Israel is not just a personal decision, it carries important consequences. The State of Israel was established as the homeland of the Jewish people, and shortly after its founding in 1950, the law of return was enacted. This law grants every Jew and their relatives the right to immigrate to Israel and obtain citizenship. In 1970, an amendment was made to the law to define who is a Jew, a person born to a Jewish mother or someone who is converted and is not a member of another religion. However, this definition of who is a Jew did not fully resolve the question, what does converted mean? What kind of conversion qualifies? This sparked a long legal battle for the recognition of conversions performed outside the Chief Rabbinate, specifically Reform and conservative conversions, both in Israel and abroad. We asked the Supreme Court to declare that our converts are entitled to citizenship under the law of return. This effort has been led by the remarkable Nicole Maor, who heads our Legal Aid Center for Olim. In the late 1980s, reform and conservative conversions performed outside of Israel were recognized for the purpose of the law of return. 20 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that our converts should be registered as Jews in the population registry. And finally, in 2021, the Supreme Court rendered a significant decision ruling that our conversions here performed in Israel will be recognized for the purpose of the law of return. Additionally, the court has upheld other petitions we filed, ordering the state to fund our conversion classes, fund circumcision for our converts, and allow our converts to immerse in public mikvahs. The bottom line is that Reform and conservative converts are registered as Jews here in Israel and are eligible for Israeli citizenship under the law of return. Our conversions are valid for all intents and purposes, except in the context of marriage, which is controlled in Israel by the Chief Rabbinate. The recognition of Reform conversions here in Israel has long been a significant issue, not only here, but also for Israel-diaspora relations. This struggle is not only crucial for us, but also for liberal Jews around the world. I'm honored to host today Rabbi Galia Sadan, Rabbi of Congregation Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv, along with Rabbi Meir Azari, the founding Rabbi of the Daniel Centers, and she's the head of the Reform Beit Din for Conversion. She's also the head of the Conversion Center at Beit Daniel, which is probably the largest conversion center around the world. Rabbi Galia, thank you so much for coming here.
Hi.
So let's start by asking you to tell a little bit about yourself. And it's really interesting for me, and I guess for our listeners, to hear, how did you become a Reform rabbi?
Wow. Well, the first question that we should address is actually, how did I become Reform to begin with? In some sense, I'm a Baalat Tshuva, right? I grew up in a secular kibbutz of the Hashomer HaTzair youth movement. in the north, in the Western Galilee. I got to know people from Kibbutz Lotan, a Reform kibbutz down in the Arava by Eilat. And I got to know the Reform movement. It was amazing to me that religion can be something that is not imposed on you. You're free to choose how to structure your Jewish identity and your religious life. And of course, the equality, getting to know an egalitarian way to celebrate Judaism was very surprising and very refreshing to me. And I think that this was what got me interested, and in a very slow process become part of the Reform movement. And then as I got to know rabbinical students, leading Nifty groups that came here for the summer when they are 16, they come for the whole summer here to Israel. So I led groups and I got to know rabbinical students. And then at Beit Daniel, such as Rabbi Gilad Kariv, whom we all know, and people started talking about their choice to go to rabbinical school, to the HUC. And I said, wow, I think that this is my calling. And I remember how my heart was pounding walking down the corridor of the HUC for my interview, just the first interview with Rabbi Michael Marmo, who was the dean at the time. And I see all the black and white pictures, all photos from the beginning of the HUC. And my heart is pounding, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be a rabbi, I'm going to be a rabbi. And it was so overwhelming. And, well, they accepted me.
And here you are.
As it happens. And here I am. Yeah.
Wow. That's wonderful. I want to start by asking you about the nature of our conversion. There are a lot of misconceptions surrounding Reform conversions here in Israel. Unfortunately, there are a lot of lies and fake news spread by ultra-Orthodox politicians. Could you tell us about the conversion process in the Reform movement here in Israel, and what does it look like?
If we look at the meaning of the word conversion in English, we see that it misses the whole point. This is why now we use the word or the expression Jews by choice, right, rather than converts or conversion, because it's not about converting people, right? It's about them embracing their Jewish identity. We must understand that they already feel Jews, right? They live in Israel, they celebrate Jewish holidays, they decided either they come from an atheist or non-religious family, or they came from a Muslim or Christian family, and they decided to put that behind and to identify themselves with our culture, our traditions, our religion. So they live practically as Jews. And now they choose formally to become Jewish. So the term Jews by choice is actually more accurate, because it's not about getting your whole life, putting them upside down, right? It's about getting recognition from the Israeli Jewish community that you indeed belong, right? That you're indeed Jewish. And I think that has an enormous impact on them, because I think that identity, or the choice to come to conversion classes, to become a Jew by choice, is about belonging more than anything else. And if I may add, I always ask them, why did you decide to join our classes? And the answer that I get, more than any other answer, is I was impressed by the strength of the Jewish family. The idea of gathering together for Friday night, right, for a Shabbat dinner, or in holidays, right? It's a small country, and this is the tradition. We gather with our families and friends for Shabbat or for holidays. And of course, for us, being raised in Israel in a Jewish family, it's sometimes a bit of a nuisance, right? Everybody joins together just to fight. But for people that come, for outsiders, right, it's amazing, the strength and the way people help each other. Just think about a young woman that comes from Sweden, and she's about to give birth for the first time, and she's alone here, especially during COVID, when the families couldn't come and help them. And she sees that the family of her spouse joins and helps and support her, and to them it's an amazing experience. So, sometimes it's nice to look at us from the outside and appreciate what we have, what we're blessed with.
So it's really interesting. You say it's really around family connections, which here in Israel are a lot around tradition and Jewish traditions.
I think that it's culture even more than tradition. It's just, people are not necessarily religious in order for them to gather for a Hanukkah candle lighting, right?
Yeah, it's being part of the Jewish culture. And the process itself, I mean, it does, require a very long process of learning and acquiring knowledge of Jewish traditions. Could you tell us a little bit about what does it look like?
So it depends on your background. We'll discuss later the issue of the patrilineal descent, but of course, if you were raised Jewish in Israel from day one, when that you were born, it's one thing. But if someone met a wonderful man in her travel after post-army traveling that like the big trip that we traditionally take in Australia, okay? And she never met a Jew before. And she's here 2 years, 3 years. She's just getting to know the Jewish culture and tradition. So, of course, for them, it's a whole year process. And it's not only about coming to classes. It's about celebrating Judaism at home according to your values and your choices, right? You don't become Orthodox all of a sudden. You're not expected to not drive on Shabbat. But you're expected to celebrate your Jewish identity.
And to be part of a congregation.
And the third component is being a part of the congregation, which is super important, right? Because, first of all, services and rituals are part of Judaism, and we're a religious movement, right? It's not a secular conversion. Secondly, the community is another source of support. And we can see it especially in communities of Olim. It can be South American Olim, like in Carmiel, and it can be former Soviet Union Olim, like in Ramat Gan. But the community is another source of, it's like a support group. Yeah. And it's important. So it's about your home, coming to classes, and being part of a congregation.
And then the process ends in coming in front of the Beit Din, right? That just actually checks or asks questions just to make sure whether this person have the sufficient knowledge, again, without requiring any observance or changing lifestyle to an Orthodox lifestyle, but just to understand that there is like a sincere will and the sufficient knowledge for the person to become part of the Jewish.
So it does require celebrating Judaism in your life. It's not that you can come to the Beit Din and say, have you been to Simchat Torah? No, I didn't have time. I was abroad. Do you light Shabbat candles? No, it's a nuisance. Did you fast on Yom Kippur? No, it's too hard for me. So if you don't do anything, so obviously I don't think that you'll get to the point that of facing the Beit Din, right? But I always tell them that the Beit Din, since they've already had the concluding talk with their own rabbi, and the rabbi kind of recommends them to come to the Beit Din. So the Beit Din is a celebration. But we must understand that they expect to be examined. Yeah. Okay? They really studied hard. Yeah. So they want us to ask them questions, but it's not about making them feel that they don't know anything, that they're not Jewish enough, whatever that means. Okay? No, it's a celebration of knowledge and concluding a very meaningful process.
And over the years, you have, I think, accompanied hundreds of converts.
Thousands, I might say.
Thousands even, who have really undergone through this really deep and meaningful process. And I want to ask you if you could share with us maybe one or two stories of those people who chose to come and join the Jewish people through the Reform movement, stories that have particularly touched you.
I think that every man and woman, we say in Hebrew, olam umlo'o. It's such an amazing process to share with people, to accompany. I think that it brings to the fullest my rabbinical identity, right? Because you actually walk hand to hand with people in a transition. I want to say that the reason I even became involved with conversion was in 2002 when the High Court resolution was made that our conversions are recognized by the State of Israel, as you said. And I was just a rabbinical student in Rishon LeZion, which is a city southern to Tel Aviv, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Do you have conversion programs? Do you have conversion programs? And I called Rabbi Yoram Azor, who was the head of the Beit Din at the time, and I was honored to take his seat many years later, and asked him, I'm only a rabbinical student, can I open a conversion class? And he said, yeah, by all means, I'll guide you. And this became my, just by chance, I became involved in this wonderful field of rabbinical work. And I think that since then, so we're talking 2002, and now we're in 2025, and we're talking about hundreds of converts that are Jews by choice, as I said before, that are choosing to study in our classes. So yeah, it's thousands of people. One story is of a woman that actually had to escape from Iran during the revolution, the Khomeini revolution. Her father and her uncle were executed by the new government, so her mother just took her and the children and ran away. They ended up in the Netherlands, and she grew up there. And one day she got to know a nice Jewish guy, and they decided to make Aliyah and to raise here their children. So, I have a map on which I pinpoint all the countries from which they came, right? So I have a pin in Iran now, in Kuwait even, in Sri Lanka, and in Burma, and it's amazing. Yeah, Myanmar, from all over the world.
Wow.
Because Israel is such a country, that people gather from all around the world. So it's quite amazing. So just sharing her story, all that she went through with her identity, growing up in Iran, then the Netherlands, then choosing a third country, and she's fluent in Hebrew, and she really sees herself as a Jew. She lives Jewish life, and she's very enthusiastic about her choice, and she's about to finish her course just next month.
Yeah.
And another story, which is really important, I think, for people that hear this podcast outside of Israel, is of a young man, let's name him Paul, okay? He was raised by parents. His father is Jewish, his mother converted after the children were born. And since his father is Jewish, he was considered a Jew by the American community, right?
Where he grew up.
So they didn't bother to convert him. And he's Jewish, he's part of Nifty, he was bar mitzvahed, he's really, enthusiastic about his Jewish identity. And he made Aliyah, and all of a sudden he discovers that the state of Israel doesn't see him as a Jew, doesn't recognize him as a Jew, is not registered as a Jew in religion and nationality, because it's important to understand that the state of Israel decided to go by the halakha. And he ended up in one of our communities, started coming to a Reform congregation on a regular basis, and he shared his story and how devastated he feels with his rabbi. And luckily enough, they connected. And she said, you know what, I'll help you. You were raised Jewish. It's a very simple process. Let's meet for 2-3 months and we'll discuss your Jewish identity. And you'll become formally a Jew. And he said, fine. He was very angry.
That he was not considered a Jew, although he completely felt
right.
Jewish.
But, she was so warm and so welcoming, and they connected. And he's a rabbi now, which is amazing, right? So without her, he wouldn't be part of our community. And I think that it's important to understand that if a woman comes to you as a rabbi, outside of Israel, and she already has children, we should do a conversion to the children, a formal conversion. It can be Giyur for Tikkun Olam, okay? Call it whatever you want, as long as they have a conversion certificate that can be later recognized by the State of Israel in case of the children decide to make Aliyah. Otherwise, they find themselves in a limbo, right? Feeling Jewish, recognized as Jews all their lives, but then in Israel, they are left outside. And Israel, is very traditional that way, okay? People actually ask you. And you find yourself apologizing for no reason at all.
I think that's a very important difference between Israel and the U.S., for sure. I want to talk numbers for a second, because really we've been converting many, many people over the years, but over the last few years, we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of people coming and choosing to become Jews through our conversion process. And just to get some numbers out, in 2023, we converted 303 individuals through the Reform movement, and this accounts for 17% of all conversions in Israel that year, in 2023. And I think this rise can be attributed to several factors, and I want to ask you first, what do you think, why do we see this increase in recent years?
Well, first of all, the war in the Ukraine is a significant component there. We still have many refugees from Ukraine and Russia, and people come, they see themselves Jews, they want to make it formal, they chose to live in Israel. It's very important for them, so this is one reason. And in the last 18 months, unfortunately, the war in October 7th made a difference. I can tell you about a woman that originally came from South America, and she's not Jewish, but she lived here with a Jewish spouse for, I think, 20, 30 years, never considering conversion. She said, fine, I'm living in Israel. Her spouse is also very secular. It never meant anything to her. She has also a hearing impairment. So, should I sit in class? Will I hear properly? And then November 7th came, and she said, I decided to be part of these people. I decided that my fate will be a Jewish fate, an Israeli fate. I want to belong. And I think that hundreds of people started coming, applying for our classes because they want to declare we are part of the Israeli Jewish story. And we want to be considered as such. Because either, many people left Israel. We must acknowledge that. And I think that if a person decided to stay in Israel, you want to say, I decided to be part of this story. I want formally to become part of this story, and the state should recognize me as a Jew. So I'll do whatever it takes to formally be registered as a Jew.
I think that's a really amazing phenomenon. I think we see this post-October 7th, dramatic increase in the number of converts, not only in Israel, but really worldwide, the sense of wanting to belong to the Jewish people at this really difficult time. So I think that's amazing. I want to add another reason. I think the fact that we've been working under a very, very difficult government in the past a little over 2 years, very extreme government has also caused more people to search a different kind of Judaism. I think the fact that in the coalition agreement of this government, actually there was a specific commitment to pass a law that would recognize just Orthodox conversions through the state system, which means that they want to abolish the recognition of our conversions, was another probably reason for people coming to us to make sure we want to convert in a way that suits our beliefs and also is recognized for now before, God forbid, it's being abolished. Thankfully, this commitment has not been implemented yet, but I think we really present an alternative to the very extreme government.
Actually, for short-term conversions, like minors, right, children that came to this world in a process of surrogacy, people that have patrilineal descent and know that the process is a 2 or 3 months process. So especially those people came in masses.
That's interesting.
And also, of course, the resolution.
Yeah, and of course the Supreme Court resolution of 2021, which also recognized our conversions for the purpose of the law of return, was another reason. I mentioned we're going through really challenging times, and you and I meet regularly on the weekly protests in Tel Aviv that has been going on for many, many years. First, we fought against the judicial coup in the last 17 months, calling for the release of the hostages. I can imagine that for you, doing the important work of conversion, as well as leading prayers in Beit Daniel and conducting a lot of bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, really keeps you grounded at a very, very difficult time. And I want to ask you, is that so?
I think that what's wonderful about the introduction to Judaism classes is that you are allowed, so to speak, to educate, right? It's not like a regular, I don't know, Bible class for the public, okay? Or a class at Tikkun Shavuot. It's an educational process, and you can actually express your values. What does it mean to you to be a religious person, and how faith can guide you in this very turbulent waters, I would say. And so when you stand in front of a class and discuss issues of faith and spirituality, you actually encourage yourself at the same time, which is quite amazing. And I think that we all need this kind of encouragement. It's not easy. And what I keep saying to my congregation in sermons and in classes is to remind ourselves that we chose to stay here. And it's a powerful choice. We have a role in this time, in these dark times in Israel. And, it gives you strength, knowing that you make a difference, knowing that it's important that you keep fighting.
Thank you, Rabbi Galia. It's really amazing. I completely agree with you. I think the fact that not only we chose to stay here, but we chose to raise a liberal Jewish voice against things we feel are unjust is very powerful. And I completely agree with you that praying with our feet every Shabbat gives us a lot of energy to continue. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for your really sacred work over the years. And thank you for listening. Hoping to be with you again the next episodes. Bye-bye.